when Booker T tweeted that he was having a medical procedure and was taking time off and would not be at the Vengeance pay-per-view and was going to be gone for a couple weeks. I knew immediately. I was like, he's not having. I mean, perhaps he had a medical procedure he'd been putting off and decided that now was the time to do it.
It was the perfect time.
Timing wise. So I figured that it meant that WWE knew about it and that the story was coming, and the story dropped last night about 6:30 Eastern time. The information in the Fightful case is very long. It's very detailed because there's a lot of information. There were screenshots provided. There are emails. There's witnesses and things like that. Booker T was talked to about it. So I won't get into the full details because I was just scanning the article and I was like, oh, there's so much in here. So I encourage you to read this article, and I have shared it to my page. I actually retweeted it to Powerbombshells last night as well. I'll retweet it again. But so Raychell Rose is somebody who was very big in the Texas independent scene. She was part of Reality of Wrestling. So if you're not familiar, Reality of Wrestling is Booker T's wrestling school in Houston, Texas. Athena came from there. Several other people have come from this school, or have at least spent some time there. And so Raychell is, if you watch Deadlock Pro, you're probably familiar with Raychell. She's wrestled there for a while, on and off. She's also appeared in WWE, and she's been in AEW as like enhancement talent. Yes, Vinkin says Roxanne Perez. Yes, Roxanne is probably the most recent person to have come from the school. So Raychell is no longer with the school, in mostly, well, not, I won't say mostly. So she was stalked by a fellow trainee at the school. She's in a long-term relationship with someone. This person became aware of that, said it's something like he couldn't trust himself alone with her, or just like, then he was showing up at places that she knew, at venues and shows that he knew she'd be at. There's a bar that they all, like, after shows, they would all go to kind of celebrate together. It was a tradition. He was showing up at these places, and he was stalking her. And was that she made the police aware, but the police in Texas said because she was never in a relationship with him, there's nothing they could do.
Which is a load of crap.
It is a load of crap. I was like, how many people are stalked by people they don't know? A lot of them.
Sonya Deville was stalked by someone she didn't know.
Right. Exactly.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives in Texas who used to work for police dispatch, and he was like, yeah, that's pretty on brand for Texan police departments. And so Raychell, she came to Fightful to talk about what happened. There were other witnesses who talked to Fightful about it as well. And so one of the incidents where things really escalated is that they were at a bar, and this guy, he's named in the article, so I will say his name here. His name is Sean Reed. As far as I know, he was just a student for a very long time, a trainee. He's not appeared on anything big, like where people would know him or anything like that. But he showed up at a bar, first he showed up at a Reality of Wrestling show, where she was at. People kicked him. She had alerted, because the police basically were like, you need to tell management or the venue if he shows up and have him removed. That's your course of action. We're not doing anything. Then you can call it. She did have an officer, I believe, that she was in touch with, and she would tell, like, hey, he's here, just to document the fact that he showed up. And so he was kicked out, but then Booker T was in the parking lot and apparently didn't know exactly what was going on. And Booker T let him go back in, like, because Sean told him he had a gun. And he was trying to defuse the situation by allowing him into the venue where this woman was.
And he didn't know about any of this because the people that she told, who said they were going to tell Booker, never told him.
Right.
And she was told that they had a trespass against him from the venue, that he wasn't allowed in the venue, which they never filed.
Right. Yes, and there was the thing
they
where
over and over they lied to this girl. Like,
yeah, and he said, I'm trying to find exactly where to start reading because, like I said, there's a bunch of information in this article. And it says that, and there was a situation when they were at the bar where he threw a glass of beer at someone. He swung at Raychell. And so this guy clearly was a violent person. And like, I cannot stress enough, this man had a gun. He was so upset that he brought this gun to a venue.
And he threatened to shoot the place up at one point.
Yeah, and
separately.
I'm not gonna read his response because he went on to Fightful's Facebook to trash her and to say, he
no
said,
way are we elevating that on our show.
He did. The one part of this I will talk about. He admitted that he brought a gun. He says openly and publicly he brought that gun, but he says he knew he would not use it. Are you sure about that? You just said you were so angry and seeing red that you brought a gun to this venue. And you're telling me
they had other threats from him where he threatened to shoot the place up. He threatened to do it before.
So Hyann, who is also involved in that wrestling, she's no longer with Reality of Wrestling either. But she even she put out a statement and she was like, we could have died. Like, I need you to understand that. Like, here's her statement here. She said, this is why things like this need to be taken seriously. Since the posting of this article, Sean Reed commented on Fightful's Facebook saying this, and then she screenshot. So that's how I read it, because she screenshot what he said. She said, in his comment, he says he brought a gun into the building that night. I was in the building that night. We could have died.
Right. But no big deal because apparently Booker T is taking the page out of his Wrestling Daddy's book and treating women the same way as
right. So when Booker T became aware of the situation, here's where it gets even worse.
The boss of the company.
Yes. So Booker T insisted that, well, first of all, when they made contact with Booker T, he insisted the timing of the story was emerging due to a meeting where Reality of Wrestling said that they will not allow wrestlers if you wrestle for Reality of Wrestling, you can wrestle for no other company in Houston. Please keep in mind that Houston is a very large city, and he's telling them that they can't wrestle anywhere else in Houston if they wrestle for him. So I believe that there's some stuff that may be coming out about that as well, because there's been some
and I think that he was trying to insinuate that the reason that she was making all of these accusations was
he tried to say that's
not because of all of these other incidents that have been. I mean, there's witnesses to this stuff. There is. I mean, she had. What I think is so crazy is she had that. So I read the article when you sent it to me, and she had a police officer that she was in regular contact with, basically like a case officer, basically, who she was like, do this, and he's like, yeah, stay away from him. Oh, tell him not to do that. Oh, whatever. Like, so the guy was handling the case, but he was doing the worst job ever.
He was doing the very bare minimum.
Very bare minimum. He has to be like this. It has to be like that. I'm like, I feel like it's unfortunate because people don't have the ability or access to get the right legal help, and that's just,
Right. And that's a problem.
I mean, she would have probably been, they would have all been better off if they could have, but they can't afford health insurance. Why? How can they afford lawyers?
They're especially in the independent wrestling scene.
You're an independent wrestler.
So this article goes on. They do have some quotes from Raychell in here, and she said that because of the bar situation where the police had to be involved in all this stuff, which Booker called a non-story, and he wondered why it took a year for it to come out. But that's because she's been in therapy since this happened, and that she finally felt safe enough to tell her story publicly. So Booker T is also victim shaming. That she says Booker screamed and cursed at me when he arrived on the scene while I was talking to police at the December incident. Said that this was my fault and I was the reason people got hurt and arrested, and he fired her. So please let that sink in. He fired a stalking victim because she was bringing bad press to the school, getting the police involved at his school. So I just want you to just remember that.
For something that they could have very well prevented entirely.
Yeah, and so there's like
if they had taken any step at all to protect the people involved in this.
Yeah. So here's the state. Took me a minute to find it. So Raychell Rose also said she spoke with Fightful and she said, to speak on the personal side of things, my safety has not been secure for years due to Sean Reed and the lack of support I received from the people in charge of Reality of Wrestling, which allowed Sean's actions to escalate the way that they did unchecked. The issue being allowed to fester for so long has resulted in many hours of speaking in person to and on the phone with police officers, district attorneys, and lawyers because of the situation. I've spent and continue to spend a great deal of time in therapy sessions to process trauma related to this incident in hopes of one day fully overcoming the effects of it. That itself comes with a stigma, but it's all part of the healing process, which I am learning to navigate and fully embrace.
Good on her.
Yeah, and so Fightful was able to obtain some of the incident reports where Reed appeared at the Premier Arena. So the Premier Arena is another arena that they use, that Reality of Wrestling uses, where they just sent him off when he became problematic there. They just dumped him off on somebody else. And so Rose said, overall, I hope that what comes out of this is Booker, along with the people placed in charge at the school, will implement procedures and protections to ensure threats are taken seriously in the future. Should they continue to not make student safety their priority, I hope that at the very least, any women who train there or are looking for a place to train see this and are able to make an educated decision before they put their safety into the hands of Reality Wrestling. She speaks of her time at Row by saying, I'm thankful for the start that Reality of Wrestling gave me, especially the original trainers there. They taught me so much, but more importantly, they protected me and created a culture that encouraged everyone to look out for each other. Despite these positive feelings about how things used to be, it doesn't absolve the actions taken by Booker T and Kevin Bernhardt. Kevin Bernhardt is a trainer at the school who he and Booker together
involved in this. He is
pretty
much responsible for the non-action. He was the person. He was the go-to person. So this was his job, and he didn't do it.
Yes. But she said that the actions taken by Booker T and Kevin Bernhardt that are geared towards protecting their reputation and downplaying the events that led up to and followed the events of that night. And then this just has the report in there, and you can see how unhelpful the police are in this report. And then several people have spoken up about JJ Blake has talked about like what happened that night, and he has I'm trying to think if there's anything pertinent to read, but basically he was confirming her story, has talked about how Reality of Wrestling has tried to downplay this. They just don't want to deal with it, basically. And so one thing that he said is, this article has been deemed a hit job. This story has been internally referred to as misinformation. This reporting of the situation has been said to be a retaliation because people are bitter about the success of Reality of Wrestling. Those affected by this issue have seen massive success in every sense of the word, which can be confirmed by a quick search on social media. Those pointed as outside agitators and antagonizers simply don't appreciate having their safety compromised, irregardless to how far away from their location they went, whether it was this on site at Reality of Wrestling or 30 miles away at a location unbeknownst until revealed by management, making it everyone's problem. These actions crossed the line and endangered people outside of their walls. And so he said he ends the statement by saying, there is no misinformation, just truth that doesn't serve your agenda. This isn't the first time something has been mishandled or covered up, which that definitely got my attention, and I wonder if that's going to come out. It's just the first time that the public knows about it. Do better. That's it. Easy solution. Don't lie. Don't hide. Don't use people as human shields or as cannon fodder. To cover your hasty retreat from accountability. Stop dangling carrots and using lies to lure people in. Stop revising history and misrepresenting truth. Artificially inflate your stock. Handle your own misinformation first. Get rid of problems when they occur and have the balls to stand up for what's right instead of only serving the select few that you assign value to. Protect everyone. If you can't do that, step aside and stop vilifying people that do. So, yeah. And I was trying to say, there's been a few other statements in support, and then I did see Raychell released a statement about an hour before our show started. She just said, First and most importantly, I genuinely can't put into words how overwhelming the love and support I've gotten in the last 24 hours alone is, not to mention the support from the people in my life since the situation started years ago. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. She also said she's not going to speak on her stalker's comments about herself, but she just wants to. The only thing that deserved any attention is that he admitted to bringing a gun with him that night. It's horrifying and genuinely makes me sick to my stomach reading that. I also want to say the fact that me finally being in a comfortable space to talk about what I went through is being deflected and boiled down to wrestling politics by the same people who put my life, and not to mention the lives of everyone at the venue, in danger multiple times is disgusting. This is not about wrestling. This is not about promotions. This is not about picking sides. This is about making sure women are safe. This is about believing victims when they come to you and tell you what is happening. This is about people's lives being at risk. I stand by what I said. What I want to come out of this is the protections and procedures put in place at not only Reality of Wrestling, but any and all schools and promotions to make sure their students, staff, and fans who attend their shows are not put in danger.
I think that says it all.
I think so too. Yes. So Hassan said that's insane. I hope Raychell is so far away from that guy. Me too. Vinkin says, so why do we not check people entering the venue? Because this is Texas and it's an open carry state and they can take guns wherever they want.
They don't care.
Because America, but specifically
I
Texas.
mean, it's a very, it's even here in Michigan, you see people carrying. I mean, it's not as Texas. It's not on Texas.
Yeah, there's several states. Where North Carolina is not an open carry, but you have to have but you can have a concealed weapon permit in North Carolina. But
you can have both here. It's open carry and you can get your CPL. So
yeah, we are not currently an open carry state, but, depending on how that changes.
That part of the world is its own thing, and it likes to be its own thing, and that's fine. But this is not okay. Yeah. And it's going on everywhere. This is not exclusive to Texas. The problem about this is that, like, this culture everywhere.
Yeah. Yes, Vinkin, in certain states in some cases you do have to have a concealed carry permit, which allows you to carry a gun, but it has to be concealed. But then there are certain states that is an open carry, which means you can just openly carry your gun around. Like you can
the way it works is it has to be visible to everybody. So you have to wear it on your hip. You have to wear it. It has to be in a holster. There's all these rules. But yes, in America, when you're walking around in the Costco or even out in Washington, we had a neighbor. I just remembered this. I totally forgotten. We had a neighbor lived across the street from us who used to mow his lawn, and he used to carry his gun while he was mowing his lawn. We were in like a neighborhood next to a school in this tiny little like thing. Like everybody knew everybody. There was a planned community. Like this dude would walk around, he would just mow his lawn. And these lawns were like the size of like an office. I mean, not huge. But he had to open carry. He had to make sure everybody knew not to mess with him while he was mowing his lawn.
This is not the time to mess with
America.
Very serious business. But yeah, so so we hope that the women involved are safe. We hope that Booker T takes some accountability here and implements the changes, and I hope that
he does not appear to be taking any accountability.
No, he's denying it even happened. So, and he says he fired her for other reasons, which is apparently not, which I don't buy.
I mean, people saw it happen, right? So, like, hello.
That's the thing. Yeah, there's people who saw it happen. There's witnesses. There's apparently text messages and emails and
I'm just sorry
like that.
Sorry that she had to go.
I am too. And that people in that venue were put in danger by this person because this is how these things escalate. They tell you, why won't the women go to the police? Well,
look what happens when we do.
She went to the police and look what they did. They didn't do a damn thing. And he came to a venue with a gun and could have killed her and countless other innocent people. So sometimes that is why people don't go to the police, because the police either sometimes don't believe them, or the laws in this country are terrible when it comes to protecting survivors, and they don't. I mean, because you can get a restraining order, but it puts your address, and so they know where you live. They can come harm you. A piece of paper is not going to stop these situations, and we've seen it happen. And there needs to be stronger. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this. There needs to be stronger laws. There need to be, easier for survivors to get to safety, to get protection. And then there goes to the wrestling schools that need to, and venues and things like this. It's a nationwide thing. I mean, because you can go on to that level, but then at the very least in the wrestling community, there needs to be safety procedures, there needs to be protocols, there needs to be protection for your talent. And if you have things like this happen, there's gotta be stuff has got to be, there's so many steps. But and we saw the stuff during Speaking Out. They said, oh well, we'll put these some promotions did put in these things. They're like, okay, if this happens, then this is what you do. If you are being harassed or assaulted or things like this is what you need to do. So there are some places, but most of them just said, okay, well, we'll look at our procedures, and then they didn't follow through with them because they don't want to do the work.